In a word, consistency. If a visual storyteller can be consistent in the facts that he presents and in the character development and in creating a world, setting rules, then the audience buys in and finds it very interesting. If you try and sell too many plot twists that don't make sense to the audience, then they sense this and disengage. Stories that are consistent lead to also a strong element of sincerity, which audiences really tend to gravitate towards. If your story is sincere, then people will buy into it even more. An event needs to be a legitimate object that actively challenges the character. Well, because it's the backbone of the story. It's the line that all of the different plot elements and characters. It's the virtual kind of line that everything connects to. It's the thing that connects all of those different pieces. So it kind of what puts them all into context. Well, it makes your story way more interesting if you have a very stark variation in what happens. A character gets introduced in one way, very small, and then has another character in the scene that's very very large. It has a contrast that just makes it very interesting. Well, the beginning act starts off setting the status quo. So you start to meet the characters, understand the rules that they live, the rules of the world that they live in. And then there's some type of catalyst that happens that is an agent of change. And then the main character is forced into a choice that he has to make. And once that character commits to that choice and can't go back to the way it was, then that's when it transitions to the middle. Well, the middle spends its entire time, building up to the climax through conflict and tension and making sure you're setting the stakes and then raising the stakes. And then once that final conflict comes to fruition, then it transitions into the after the main character achieves his goal. Well, right in line with the beginning of any story, setting the normal or the norms is setting the status quo for that environment. So it's very important to set that because it gives the audience a frame of reference for the character. A scene is longer than a frame. A frame is the single picture that is put into many that actually present the image, and a scene is there's something that needs to be achieved from a scene, so it's multiple shots, multiple angles. So a scene is longer than a frame. Well, these days, the answer to that question is it may be, but in the true sense of the word, no, television is two-dimensional. Real world is three-dimensional, although there are three-dimensional televisions where you have to wear assistive eyewear, but no, television is two-dimensional, thank goodness. Each frame or picture is shown in rapid succession, one right after another, 24 frames per second, and this persistence is actually there's a term for it called persistence of vision. And this is the phenomenon at which people perceive motion by watching, multiple images in rapid succession. There are many important elements of a story, but I would say probably the most important is the three-act structure, the fact that you have a beginning, middle, and end, and the main build-up of the conflict that the main character has to go through. So that story arc and that through line, I would say that the element that makes your story kind of stick together through the three-act structure. You call that a transition. A transition is when you go from one shot to another shot. A lot of transitions are kind of straight cuts, but you have also cross fades, fade outs, fade ins. This is a way to kind of end what's going on and transition into something. A sequence is a series of scenes that propel a common story arc. And so it also happens in a pretty succinct linear period of time. So when you change like time or location, or you change a common story arc element, then that's when one sequence transitions into another. I had a conversation earlier today with two of my coworkers where we were kind of making a plan for the day and tomorrow, kind of like the workload. And there were several things where we kind of, a couple different people had ideas about things to do, and there was a pause and kind of a general, little visual confirmation that the person kind of understood something. A couple different things, geek moments between computer nerds.